welcome to lesson 4. This lesson is all about settling into boarding school during the first few weeks of joining. What are we going to cover in this lesson? We're going to talk about the new pupil day, which usually happens in the summer term before joining. We're going to talk about the induction and buddy system. We're going to talk about arrival day. And we're going to talk about contact with home within the first few weeks of joining school. So first of all, let's just run through the new pupil day. Most boarding schools will have a day which will be published well in advance on the calendar, on the website, and via the information that you're sent. It'll usually be in June, sometime around about the summer term. After a lot of exams are finished in the school internally. And this is a day when the school invite all new pupils to come and spend a day, sometimes a night too, at their new school. And this is by way of an induction for children to get to know the school a bit so that they're not quite so nervous about starting in September. I would recommend a this if at all feasible. Even if you live abroad and your child is at perhaps British International School overseas, I would really try and make it possible for them to attend this day, because it's a great opportunity for them to meet some of the children who will be at school with them, and hence it may well mean that when September comes they are slightly less nervous because they know what to expect. It will also mean that they can start to make friends in their year group, in their boarding house, and then they'll have some contacts to keep in touch with over the summer holidays, which really will make starting at their new boarding school less daunting. Also, the new pupil day is usually filled with lots of fun activities, as well as sorting through general paperwork, etc. And so it will mean that your child will look forward to starting school, because it will be a really positive memory for them during the summer term, ready for starting in September. It's also an opportunity for your child to meet the house parents, the matron, their tutor perhaps, some of the key teaching staff. And it's also your opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about getting your child ready for starting in September. You can also start to meet other parents over a cup of tea and a sandwich or a coffee. And that means that you can connect and share queries and worries over the summer holidays pre-joining. There's also an opportunity usually to sort out uniforms, sports mouth guards, etc. The school uniform shop will probably be open, so you'll be able to book an appointment and get that sorted. So there's lots of sort of general admin and nitty-gritty that you can perhaps get covered during the new pupil day, which will free up more time over the summer holidays for family time prior to your child starting at boarding school in September. Let's look at induction. Particularly for children who are joining the school from overseas, some boarding schools will have a few days induction at the school in advance of the other pupils arriving in September. This is perhaps because they haven't been able to attend the new pupil day that I've just mentioned, and hence it's the chance for a second chance really for children to find their way around the school, to settle into the boarding house and to meet key staff before the really serious work starts when the term begins. It's also an opportunity to check that they've got all the uniform and other kit that they need, and getting into trouble for not having sports kit or the right shoes can lead to homesickness. So I really would advise you to make certain that they arrive on day one with everything on the kit list. So let's talk a little bit about the buddy system for when children start at their new school. It's often called lots of different things. I know schools where it's called angels. It's a same word. It's a different word really for the same thing, and that is a child who's been paired up with your child in the same year, who has already been at the school for a while. So that depends on the age of your child. Obviously, if your child is joining new to the school, along with everybody else into year 1, then the buddy system may well involve an older child who will sort of mentor and keep in touch with your child to check they're settling and report to staff if they're worried that they're not settling in well. Encourage your child to spend time with their buddy until they've made friends on their own, until they really feel that they've found their feet and they know what's going on and how to find everything that they need. They can help with the timetable, understanding where you're supposed to be when, finding classrooms. They can also help if you're feeling on your own at lunchtime or after school or at bedtime. It's just a friendly, happy face to support them in their first few weeks. So what will arrival day look like? Well, the format of the day will largely depend on the age of your child. So make sure you read in the documentation you've been sent what the recommended arrival time is and stick to it. There'll probably be a range of times. So I would suggest don't be too early because you don't want your child to be on their own, but also don't be late because that will cause your child to feel anxious that they're going to be behind everybody else. Follow the format of the day that has been recommended by the school. So for younger children at prep school, very often the school may ask you to come along to a meeting for parents to ask any questions you may have, to meet any other parents, to have a cup of tea and a sandwich, and to say goodbye to your child and then depart. Often the schools with younger children would prefer to manage the unpacking for new children and settling in themselves rather than parents getting involved. Chances are they will have arranged a fun activity to follow your departure to take your child's mind off leaving. So trust their expertise. They will have formatted this day from years of experience of how best to settle children in. So follow the format of the day, no matter how hard you may find it to say goodbye to your child. For older children, you will probably be invited up to the dormitory to help your child to unpack and to settle in. Again, my recommendation would be to do this as quickly as possible and then say goodbye. Before you leave, however, make sure there's at least one other pupil in your child's dormitory or that they're scooped up to take part in activity with others. So don't leave them alone in their dormitory when you leave. Departing quietly, almost without their noticing, will very much help them to cope with your leaving. Saying goodbye is such a hard thing for you as well as for your child. It's perhaps harder for you than it is for your child, but hanging around for too long will make it much harder when you come to leaving. Let's just say a quick word about medicine and medical things. You will have completed a comprehensive medical form. We mentioned it in the previous lesson as part of your joining documents. So if you have any medical worries when your child arrives on day 1, arrange to meet the medical team in the medical centre to discuss, or you could discuss it with matron or one of the house staff. But do make sure that you highlight this to a member of staff so that they know to keep an eye out for your child. It's always better to share any medical worries you may have at this time so that they can keep an eye ahead of any issues arriving. If they can be proactive, it means that maybe situations won't get too bad rather than you not saying anything and then your child worsening and hence having a bigger problem to deal with later. It's really important to hand in any medicines that your child is taking, so matron can look after them, and also to explain how and when the medicines are to be taken. Now let's move on to contact with home. Before you depart, I would make sure you discuss and agree with your child when you will speak with them on the phone. I have found in the past 7 years as a house mistress, one of the things that can work really well is if parents give their child some self-addressed stamped postcards which can really easily be written on the back and popped in the post to you without any hassle for your child. This gives you a really quick update on what's going on, and you know that they are well. When they're really busy in their first few days and weeks and trying to settle in, it's just an easy way for them to keep in touch with home. Some schools have rules about home contact when a child is first settling in. Some will recommend a couple of weeks without contact. Some schools are more flexible. Again, this really depends on the age of your child, and it will all be explained to you before you drop your child off or on the arrival day. Some schools will use the first EXIAT weekend as the first opportunity to catch up with home. So I would recommend planning something exciting for this, so your child really has something to look forward to as a milestone that they will have achieved once they've got there. If, for example, there's a 3-week period up to EXIAT when you are not in contact with your child because that's the settling in period as defined by the school, if you're worried, you can always get in touch with the house parents or matron by phone or via email. Particularly if it's a prep school, they'll almost certainly send you regular emails to update you on how your child is settling in. And so you really don't need to worry, but I do understand why you might worry. So do contact the house parents if you have any concerns for any particular reasons so that they can resolve them for you. This sounds hard to hear, but I have looked after many children in boarding schools. And I can honestly say no news is good news, though I totally understand why that is one of the hardest things for parents. So my recommendation would be to you, keep yourself as busy as you can during this time, because that will stop you from sitting and worrying about your child. Plan something as a family for the first half term, because as I said a moment ago, milestones are so important with coping with the first term away from home, just until they're settled into the routine. Now let's just talk a little bit about coping with homesickness. So here's my list of do's. If your child does call home in distress, here are a few pieces of advice. Do listen and reassure them that things will get better. Listening is really important. Encourage them to tell you about fun things they've done at school to try and divert their attention away from feeling sad and the things that are making them feel sad. Talk about your exciting plans for when they next come home for EXIAT and half term. Perhaps ask what they might like to do so that you can plan it. Keep steering them to talk about positive things and what they've achieved since they've been at boarding school, while of course listening and acknowledging that they are homesick. And again, keep in touch with matron and the house staff if you're worried. They will be able to reassure you, and I can guarantee that if they are worried, they are the experts, they will let you know and discuss their worries with you. If it's something out of the ordinary that they haven't seen before, if they feel your child's homesickness is very severe, then they will discuss it with you. So here's a few don'ts. Never tell your child that you will go to school to see them, that you will collect them and bring them home, or that you will allow them to leave if they are unhappy. This is a really tricky thing, but once you open up the door a little crack, it's very difficult to get a child to settle. So no matter how upset they are, committing to going to school to seeing them or to taking them away or bringing them home will make it very, very hard for them to focus their mind on settling. Try very hard not to show them that you are upset. I know that's such a difficult thing to do if your child is upset on the phone, but if you don't stay too long on the phone if they're upset, then that makes it much easier for you and for them. So it's much better to try and draw a call to a close if they're upset and then straight away call the house staff or matron and alert them that your child is upset, so that they can go and find them and make sure that they're okay, and then they can give you a quick call afterwards just to reassure you. Don't dwell on a sad call. From years of experience of looking after children in a boarding house, on most occasions, 10 minutes after they've been very upset on the phone, they will be happily playing with their friends while you are sitting at home worrying about them. Trust that the school will contact you if there is a problem. Don't dwell on a sad call, and try and distract yourself and keep busy. Try not to tell your child too much about what's going on at home, particularly if younger siblings remain at home, because if they feel like they're missing out, or if they're missing dogs or horses or granny or grandpa, then if you talk about what's been happening in that regard, it might make them more homesick. And lastly, don't break the rules that the school puts in place for very good reasons about calling your child during the setting in period. Schools are the experts, and you've chosen this school for your child for very good reasons. So trust them that if there is an issue with homesickness beyond what they are see normally, they will get in touch with you. And so we've sort of come to the end, really, of our lessons. So this is just to remind you that your login gives you lifetime access to these lessons and resources that are on this site. And also, I'd love to hear your success stories and your feedback on what you found useful in the course, because it will help me to add new content in future if there's things that you've faced that you would have liked extra help with or extra advice with, or where you feel there is an extra lesson that I might add on a certain topic. Do please let me know, because it's really helpful for the future of developing this course. So it's of the most help to parents. You can get in touch via the contact page of the website, and do please let me know how your child is getting on. Years of being an education consultant, the best thing is to hear success stories of happy children. So do please let me know how it's going. Thanks for listening to me. I hope you've enjoyed the course as much as I enjoyed writing and recording it. And as I said, do remember you have lifetime access via your login. So check back regularly, because I will be adding new content in the bonus folders on a regular basis. So even if your child is now at school, you may well find that some of that content is useful. And of course, if you've got siblings who will need places at boarding school in future, you will be able to go through the whole process, the 7 steps to success process, all over again. So just remains for me to say, thanks for listening.